And here we go. Aha, yeah. How about that? That's better, isn't it? Wow. Something happened to the computer. I wouldn't say that it was attacked or hacked, but I would say that it was compromised. What's happening, everybody? I apologize for the lateness here today with the show, but it was heavy sledding getting online. Unusual stuff. Yesterday's show brought up a lot of interesting comments from listeners over on YouTube, where the show is immediately transitioned off to and posted, and also just to my email and text. And it was a show that I think people were kind of eager to hear because it was a connect the dots, and we always try to connect the dots, but it was a connect the dots in a kind of a wider scope and a wider web, and witnessing the essentially what is a surveillance state and a society of tracking and control. Jack, who is one of the listeners, great guy out of California, this is what he said to me. This is what he sent. He said, so there was a software program that reads license plates and tracks the movements of any cars that a camera at any intersection anywhere in the world can read. It's already happened. They just don't want us to know we're all being tracked. That's why they can find wanted people so quickly. Well, speaking of finding wanted people, not only did they find the so-called bomber, but they quickly located him, and, well, of course he's dead, but they located his former place of residence, where he was from, and apparently he was from So this is the party line. This is what they're giving you, the people of the world. This is what they're saying about Salman Abedi. Which may or may not be real. My sense is it's not real at all. More and more is starting to come out and emerge around the Manchester event. And there are pieces of video out there where they had a major rehearsal. What was it, about 10 days before the event? I mean, you can go online now and you can find where people are, acting out. They're pretending that they're hurt. This is it's amazing. It's amazing. I would like to go to one of these sort of crisis actor rehearsals for these drills, just so I can act out, and pretend like I'm a bloodied victim or something like that. I mean, if you watch this stuff, it's kind of it's comical, but it also gives you some sense and understanding about how these events are created ahead of time. So what's happened now, of course, we have the divide and conquer. The divide and conquer piece is in full effect. Go on Facebook, go on comments on YouTube, and there are people that are saying, you know, F you if you believe that Manchester was fake. I've known people, I know people, and yet there is evidence that refutes a lot of these claims. So where are we with this? Where are we? What's going to happen? I'll tell you what's going to happen. In England, they'll institute more control. Now, I don't know how much more control they're going to institute because that is one of the most wired cities in the world when it comes to cameras. So what does that mean? Does that mean there's going to be troops on the ground in England like there is in France now, which is basically an occupied territory? But what will happen is that those measures will be put in place, whatever they are, and then what will happen is that there will be nothing. It will just dissipate. It will go down the memory hole, just like these other events, just like Orlando has gone down the memory hole, just like what happened with Lee Rigby has gone down the memory hole, only to be resurrected on the 22nd of some month in the future when some other event happens, and we connect all the dots with 22 or 11 and all the occult symbolism that goes along with it. And we wake up and we say, aha, yes, this is taking place. At some point, this shit's got to end. I'm sorry, it's got to end. At some point, somebody is going to have to come forward and say, these events, which are part of of course, the Hegelian dialectic on steroids, these events aren't what they appear to be. And I'm not just talking about people like myself or any number of researchers or any number of people that are trying to unravel what's happening as the Matrix begins to assert its control and create these synthetic and artificial events that in turn wind up creating a synthetic and artificial reality. So this is what's happening now, and this has really started. This whole thing started with WikiLeaks. So we had the 9/11 truthers, and the 9/11 truthers. It's like, okay, we'll put them on the back burner, and then we had the Sandy Hookers. That'd be a great name for a band, wouldn't it? The Sandy Hookers. Anyway, so we had the Sandy Hookers. Now the Boston Marathoners, not so much, right? You'll talk when you get into the conspiracy realm. It's going to be 9/11 and Sandy Hook. By the way, are they going to make a movie out of Sandy Hook? At some point, there's going to have to be a movie made out of Sandy, because this is what happens, right? They made, 2 movies? Mr. JFK. This is Mr. Conspiracy Theory. This Oliver Stone knows what happened. He absolutely knows what happened. And yet, he goes out and he makes one of the films that sells this version of 9/11. Now we have Patriot Day, right, which is with Mark Wahlberg and the bombing in Boston and the hunting down of the Tsarnaev brothers. And of course, what these films do is they canonize the events. It's ironic that something that's fictional, and it is fictional, these events are fictional, something that's fictional is then turned into something that's real, which is turned into something that is fictional, which is the movie portrayal of the event, which was in its own way a staged movie portrayal, and that's turned into something that in our minds reaffirms what's real. Isn't that interesting? I mean, it's like these layers. So, oh yeah, there's a movie about it. It must be real. So there's got to be a Sandy Hook movie coming out at some point. What if I just did a quick little Google search on Sandy Hook film? Oh, yeah, Sandy Hook movie. Here we go. Okay, now there's a. Gun control. I did not know this movie existed. I guess you can find it on YouTube. And let's see. The user reviews for this one. Be made aware of the high treason that has been perpetrated on the American people. Sandy Hook was a capstone drill conducted on the 13th and portrayed to the world as the real deal on the 14th. Anyone that does not believe that it was fake hasn't done any research. The MSM lies about almost every news story to control the masses. If you believe Sandy Hook was real and that the children and adults were murdered, you're mistaken. 9/11 was a lie, just like the Boston Marathon bombing. If you want to see overwhelming evidence, go on Facebook and check out a page called Exposing the Big Three. It has all the best articles and videos on 9/11, Sandy Hook, and the Boston Marathon. Good luck in your awakening. The world is not what you have been told it is. Also, check out Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole. There we go. The directors are Peter Klein. This is the director. I've got to get this guy. Okay, here's another film. Check this out. So there's another film called The Life of Adam. An independent group of journalists examine the official accounts and media reports of the Newtown shooter Adam Lanza and discover fallacies, contradictions, and endless anomalies. Really? You think? Because Adam Lanza never existed. He never existed. By the way, isn't it interesting that when we get into these events, there are brothers involved? Have you noticed that? If they may be involved either directly or indirectly, but there are brothers involved. So for Adam Lanza, so with Sandy Hook, we have Adam Lanza and his brother, and really Adam Lanza is his brother. You get into the Boston Marathon and you have the Tsarnaev brothers, and with what happened with Seth Rich, now his brother Aaron is not involved, but there is a brother. So it's fascinating that this model follows two brothers. Fascinating stuff. That's Gemini, by the way. That is Gemini in duality. Okay, here's the Sandy Hook lingerie massacre party. That's from 2000. That's wild. I've never known that this movie exists. Fascinating stuff. Absolutely. Okay, so I've got to get this guy on the show, Peter Klein. Interesting. So the fallout from Manchester, of course, there's tears and sympathy and everything that takes place. It'll go down the rabbit hole, the memory hole. First we go down the rabbit hole, then we go down the memory hole. But the fallout of it is a widening gyre of divide and conquer, where people are being sort of pitted against one another. And, how can you say this? How can you say? I've got a really good Facebook friend, haven't talked to her in a long time, Sasha Claire Christie. She basically said, if you believe that what happened in Manchester was a fake or a false flag or a hoax, just do me a favor and It's like, whoa. So we're going to have Darren Williams on tomorrow, and we're going to have Steve Creamy on tomorrow as well. And we're going to talk with Darren. I'm going to talk about what happened in Manchester. Now, Darren is not from Manchester. He lives in Liverpool. But of course, he always has his nose to the ground and does his best to come up with interesting pieces of information and salient clues. And then Steve and I will talk about sort of the mythopoetic or the kind of modern fallout or the contextual fallout of what happened in Manchester and what happens next at this point in time. By the way, there was a listener, follower on YouTube who recommended a website called The Daily Crow, and I went there and it blew my mind. You got to check this website out. Google The Daily Crow. This guy is a Christian, and he is a massive dot connector. Massive. And what's fascinating about this site is when you go in and read the comments, people in the Christian world are very clear that we are in the end times. I've never seen such a sense of surety coming out of that community. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that what's happening on a global stage is cohering to the interpretation of prophecy. And what's fascinating is that we used to have a lot of these kind of old school, and they're still around, like Pat Robertson is still around. And they were their own version of dot connectors, right? Tex Mars, he's not a telepreacher, but Tex Mars is a heavy duty. I love Tex Mars, by the way. I think he's great. And, he's a Christian, and he's a dot connecting Christian. But there's a new generation now who are very, very savvy and who have access to really interesting, like this guy who is the Daily Crow obviously knows the Bible quite well. So he's able to reference pieces from the Bible and bring in an almost Jordan Maxwellian-like ability to connect dots. It's great. Great stuff. I highly recommend it. Check it out. But they're very much in tune with what's taking place, and it's all kind of moving towards what is looking more and more like, in their eyes, the end times. And the comments are fascinating. Like, I'll see you on the other side. And I mean, they're really into this. They're really into what's taking place. And for these people, this is their moment of deliverance. I mean, they're like, hallelujah, get me out of here. I'm living my good life. I'm living my good life in the name of Christ, and hallelujah. So this is their Christmas in a lot of ways. It'll go down the memory hole, and then we'll have another event. Eastern Europe, the Holy Sites Tour, the Sacred World Tour, is drawing to a close. Something's going on with Trump and Melania. Tia veil on her head in the grandiose Apostolic Palace as her husband met with Pope Francis for 29 minutes behind closed doors. She eventually got to go in, but the first thing the Pope asked her was, "What do you feed him?" Potiza. He was referring to a doughy delicacy from her native Slovenia, not pizza, as by the report, about the same time implying that if POTUS is portly, that's her fault as his wife. "Yes," she replied, smiling. In Israel, who can forget the image of First Daughter Ivanka praying alone in the cordoned-off section of the plaza in front of the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem? Female reporters traveling with the president there were also separated from their male colleagues. In Saudi Arabia, where women can't vote, can't drive, and live under the guardianship of men. But of course, feminists love to embrace Islam. It's okay. Embrace them. Embrace this faith. Embrace these people. And the Wahhabist Salafist version of Islam, not very kind to women. Mind-blowing, to be honest with you. Neither the First Lady nor the First Daughter wore headscarves, but they were so obviously just window dressing to the events. So there's issues in the House of Trump with him and Melania. How can there not be? The real first family is Jared and Ivanka. Okay. Brilliant Trump speech, NATO speech at HQ, addressing 9/11 in Manchester and Americans. All Eurolitos, scoff, smirk, pretentious. Got to check this out. Thank you, Kimberly. I appreciate sending that. That was great. In the moment, I love this live on the air interactivity. You know, Richie Allen has people that tweet his show. I'm going to try to maybe incorporate that. Maybe that's a way that we can get some dialogue happening here. And I need to do some more phone and call and stuff. Speaking of Jerry Kushner, so tomorrow, I'll tell you what, tomorrow I will look at Trump's the computer is just not responding today. I can't grab my information in real time as much as I'd like. A terminally ill woman for rent while she was in hospice. Oh, this is interesting. People are drilling down on Jared. Maybe they can drill him right out of Washington, D.C. Kushner Companies owns almost 20,000 low-income housing units in 3 states, but tenants of some of its Baltimore homes say they are falling apart. Stories include collapsed ceilings, holes in walls, and mouse infestations. One woman sank ooze raw sewage while her carpet crawled with maggots. Kushner Company says that it sticks to industry standards for maintenance. Other residents have been aggressively pursued for rent after leaving. One woman was hounded while dying of pancreatic cancer in a hospice. Another owes $5,000 in missed rent despite having permission to break a contract. So the parent company, once run by Jared Kushner, now run by his family, has been blasted by its tenants for failing to repair its buildings while viciously litigating anyone who falls behind on rent. In one stomach-churning story, Jasmine Cox of the Cove Village complex complained of maggots emerging from her carpet and raw sewage floating out of her kitchen sink. That's like a horror film. It sounded like someone turned a pool upside down. Cox told ProPublica, I got out of bed and the sink is black and gray. It's pooling out of the sink and the house smells terrible. When she moved out, the company invoiced her for $600 for a new carpet and other repairs. Cox is the most startling tale, but it's far from the only one. As residents of the properties which are owned by JK2 Westminster LLC, a subsidiary of Kushner Companies, are displeased with their landlords, to put it mildly. Good. Let's put the screws. Let's put the screws to Jared Kushner. That would be a good thing to do, wouldn't it? Trouble in the house of Trump with Melania. Trouble in the house of Kushner, although Kushner's probably bulletproof. And Trump gets to return to the United States, where he's got to find a new pick for the FBI. One of my alt-right sources, Mark Trueblood over on Facebook, shot me a text from somebody who is kind of in the know in Washington, D.C., and in the know with the Trump administration. And according to this person, through Mark, the Joe Lieberman thing was a smokescreen the entire time. And that the person that Trump has lined up to become director of the FBI will send shivers and chills down the spines of the liberal and progressive community. We're talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger, maybe. Wouldn't that be interesting? It's not going to happen. He's got too much dirt in his closet. England, which is the most wired country on the planet. They've had CCTV for 20 years. It's like that TV show The Prisoner from the 1960s, which, by the way, is a perfect example of predictive programming. If you haven't seen The Prisoner, all the episodes are available on YouTube. I highly, 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 highly recommend them. And you'll see what I'm talking about. Here we go. This is on Reddit. This is a thread. England has the most surveillance in the world, but there's no footage of the actual Manchester explosion or bodies. Here we go after that. The next post in the thread, there never seems to be legit footage of these attacks that keep happening. It could be coincidence once or twice, but the majority of them are like that. Yes, the Nice truck attack was a real head-scratcher. 100,000 people on a boardwalk, at least half of them filming a fireworks show, and yet the only footage ever uploaded is one grainy 40-frame video of the truck before it even gets to the crowd, and another aftermath video of injured bodies that looks more like a civil defense drill. There were a bunch of videos. Tourists and Nice locals immediately provided the footage. Blah, 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 blah. So you'll get some other pieces here on Reddit. But if you want to follow the thread, it is on Reddit Conspiracy, and it has to do with the fact that England has the most surveillance in the world, but there's no... This is true. Now, I was passed on a Instagram, which I would love to get this Instagram post up, and it shows that they were running a drill. I imagine you can find this on YouTube. It shouldn't be a problem at all. What else do we have here in the Reddit thread? All the 22 symbolism, of course. Master Builder, the death of JFK. And what I thought was really a significant event was the King David Hotel bombing, which took place on July 22nd, 1948, which actually links Israel and the British together again, well, theoretically, because Trump was in Israel at the time that it happened. Am I right? So if you want to get down, when you want to crawl down the rabbit hole, you can get into reddit.com/r/conspiracy. You can look that up and have a field day over on Reddit. What else is happening out there in the Twitterverse? Let's see. Here we go. This is an interesting site, Saboteur 365. Hannity wimps out, drops the Seth Rich investigation. How about that? There's a little news tidbit for you. Sean Hannity has defiantly vowed on his radio program to continue his investigation of the murder of DNC stagger Seth Rich. By nightfall, as he appeared on his Fox News TV show, he sang a different tune. Somebody with a great deal of power and influence does not want the murder of Seth Rich investigated. Hannity may have been threatened or blackmailed. In any case, he looks really stupid today. This is what he has to say. Okay, to be clear, I'm closer to the truth than ever. Not only am I not stopping, I'm working harder. Updates when available. Stay tuned. Sean Hannity, by the way, is in the crosshairs at Fox. He's the next to go. Mike Cernovich chimes in. Where is the cash reward for finding Seth Rich's killer? I put up $20,000. What did DNC, $1 billion corporation, offer? Mike Cernovich, where is the tip line for Seth Rich? Surely his DNC-sponsored team has set that up because they totally care. The Seth Rich piece is not an easy event to untangle. And the reason why it's not uneasy, but the reason it's uneasy is because of the parents. Once you get into the parents and see their reaction, if you go back to that video, by the way, and you watch that piece with his parents, you'll see his father literally mouth his mother's lines. He'll repeat the mother's lines without actually speaking them. He mouths them. I mean, what the hell is going on there? I don't think Seth Rich, I don't think he's dead. I think we're barking up the wrong tree with this, to be quite honest with you. Okay, so we've got the Manchester bombing. We have the crisis actors. We have the drills that have taken place in the prelude to Manchester. We have the fallout from Manchester. We have Trump coming back from his God tour of the Middle East and the Vatican and the secular humanist gods of the EU. So this weekend will be quite interesting. But really things will probably cook up again next week as we approach Trump's birthday and we come to that all-important June 1st day, which a lot of people have circled off in their calendars. I'll look at June 1st tomorrow. And that'll be 24 hours earlier from today. And hopefully my computer issues will have resolved themselves by then. Boy, that was a real struggle to get on here. All right. That said, use your head to discern what's real, your heart to say what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix, and this was your 15 Minutes of Flame.